Hello and welcome to the University of Chicago Master of Liberal Arts Information Session. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us tonight and learn a little bit more about our program. Just a couple of things to start us off. One is we are recording tonight's session, so we'll share it out with you after the event in case you want to revisit anything. We also ask that you turn on your cameras. We love to see our students, as this is an online program. It helps with active engagements in classroom settings, so we'd love to see you if you're willing to turn your camera on tonight. Also, because we are an online program, we have people join us from all around the world, so please feel free to drop in the chat where you are joining us from tonight. We always love to see that. Starting off, we do always like to take a moment and look at our beautiful campus. As I said, this is an online program, but the University of Chicago campus is just absolutely beautiful. This time of year, it's wonderful because we're seeing the trees and flowers bloom again. It's just a great time of the year to be on campus. And while it is a fully online program, there are opportunities for students to come visit the campus throughout the course of the program, and we will talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. So just to guide our conversation tonight, we'll go through a welcome. We will also we'll walk through a snapshot of the MLA. We'll also talk about the overall learning journey, and then we'll go through timeline, details for application, and then there will be time for a Q&A. So to start off tonight's conversation, I will talk about, I'll introduce myself. I'm Carrie Dempsey, Director of Recruitment for the Graham School. My team and I are here to help you through the application process. We also have Tom Shannon on the call tonight. Some of you may have spoken to Tom before. He is our enrollment counselor, and he is always available to answer any questions that you may have about the Master of Liberal Arts. And I will pass you off to Tim Murphy, who is our program director. Tim, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. My name is Tim Murphy, and I serve as the program director of the Master of Liberal Arts program here at the University of Chicago. This fall will be my 10-year anniversary with the Graham School, and I've spent that entire time working with the MLA, and that longevity is entirely due to the fantastic program. It's a fascinating curriculum. It's a lot of fun to work with the students and the faculty to bring it all together. And I think that we'll have some time later on to go into the details of what makes it such a special place. And I look forward to participating in that conversation. So that's who I am. And we're lucky to have an alum and a soon-to-be alum on the call to share some of their experiences through the MLA program with you all as well. So maybe we'll start with Beth. If Beth can say hello next and introduce yourself.
Hi, nice to meet everybody. As Tim mentioned, I graduated last year in June of just about a year ago right now. We were just talking a little bit about the graduation process and how exciting that was. I have worked across industries and companies. I came to the MLA with an MBA and a journalism degree, and currently now doing consulting for a number of different companies, but on the corporate side. But I'll tell you a little bit about how my MLA has helped with that process.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Mark. I just finished my thesis a few weeks ago, and so I will be graduating in June. So the program's coming to an end for me. It's been wonderful. Kind of some further background for me. I had an undergraduate degree in accounting. I got a MBA at the Booth School at the University of Chicago before it was actually called Booth. And then 30 years later, with really no liberal arts experience whatsoever, began the MLA program. It's been a wonderful journey, and I look forward to sharing some of my experiences with you all.
One photo that you see on the slide here is our Dean, Seth Green, and he will be joining us in just a moment. He was running. Oh, actually,
and there he is, perfectly queued up.
So we'll let him get set up before we pass things over to him. There he is.
Hi, I'm
Hello,
so
Seth.
sorry
We're
to
just
be
doing
late and
introductions.
so grateful to see everyone. I'm the Dean of the Graham School, and it is an utter joy to have the Master of Liberal Arts in our house, so to speak, at the University of Chicago. It is a jewel, and we'll talk about that. And Tim, if you're introducing others, I'll turn it back to you.
We just got through everybody.
You did? Okay, wonderful.
The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Well, what I'm going to do, just so I don't have to keep saying next slide, I'm going to take over the sharing here. Can you see my screen? Yes. All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you all again for joining us. My deep apologies that I am a minute late. It is a sign of traffic in Chicago and not a sign of extraordinary excitement for this degree and what it does for the students and for our university. And so let's jump right in. If you are here, you may already know this, but the MLA is designed to help you grow as a leader, as a problem solver, and as a communicator. And the way that we approach that mission is through the study of the liberal arts, using the different traditions of intellectual inquiry to really help you to think deeply and critically at a time where that has never been more valuable. I will say that the background behind the MLA is that our world now for decades has been becoming more complex and dynamic. And our belief is that as you see that complexity, one of the most valuable skills that you can have is thinking very critically about the world around you. And that especially as AI and other technologies really automate a lot of the kind of, knowledge-based intelligence, the ability to think originally is more important than ever. And so we really see this as a vital approach to education in a transforming world. In terms of how we see the specifics of the value, we really emphasize three specific ways in which the Master of Liberal Arts can be a partner in your intellectual journey. The first is that we think it can help to sharpen your synthetic thinking. And what we mean by that is how you are approaching your writing, your presenting, but most of all, what we call synthetic, which is bringing together ideas from lots of different angles in an original format. And it does that by having you look across so many different disciplines and ways of thinking that you become much more fluent in being able to recognize patterns and be able to think through original ways to organize information. You also have a chance to specialize in the Master of Liberal Arts. And so this is a degree where you see across the university in the early part, and we'll talk about how you do that. And then you have an opportunity to concentrate in ethics and leadership, literary studies, or tech and society. And then finally, one of the hallmarks of the university is that we are big believers in joint inquiry. And that means that you are deeply investing with peers in the process of learning. And it is a really special part of the MLA that you get to know others who are on this intellectual journey with you and not only build relationships that hopefully become friendships, but also get to benefit from the brain power of all of these other accomplished individuals in the room with you. In terms of the who of the MLA, every MLA student has its own story, but there are some commonalities. One is that a majority of the people in the MLA do already hold a graduate degree. We see a lot of people who maybe got an MBA in their late 20s or early 30s, JD or an MD, and they're really coming back now because they want to engage the life of the mind in this additional period of graduate study. We also have a very national audience. So we are in Chicago. This is an online degree with the opportunity to come for residential seminars. And so about 2/3 of the students are from outside of the state and increasingly from around the world. In our most recent admission cycle, I believe we were about 40%, if I'm remembering correctly, maybe 20%, I apologize, in the international category of people outside the country. So we're seeing around the world, and it really adds to the diversity of the classroom to have those experiences. And finally, we are talking about people that not only have significant accomplishment, but also have significant experience. The average is 18 years, and we have obviously people on both sides of that number. But it really creates what we anticipated when we kind of went forward with the MLA, which is not only a liberal arts journey that is very expansive and expands thinking, but also in some ways an intergenerational journey, because we have people, maybe a decade into their careers to people that are 3 or 4 decades in. And so it really allows for the thought in the classroom to be diverse on many levels in terms of the conversation, the experience level, the way that people look at different texts and ideas. These are what we consider to be the key attributes of a UChicago student. That is, you are highly curious. You love, hopefully, the life of the mind, which is, a hallmark here at the university. That you are rigorous, that you really want to dig in and ask the question of where's your evidence and why. That you're innovative. We are a place of unconventional thought. We really pride ourselves on being provocative here and testing ideas, challenging assumptions, and sometimes even engaging in what are controversial debates, because we think that's the way that truth and knowledge are advanced. And then it is a highly collaborative environment. This is a place where we really value peer relationships and knowledge, and we are very fortunate to have a faculty in the MLA that really sees the students, yes, as students, but also as colleagues in many ways because of the experience people bring. And they really look for a class in a Socratic seminar format that allows the wisdom of the entire room to come out. And so we even talk about collaboration in the inquiry process, because it is not a typical, teacher has all the information and student is absorbing. It is much more of a teacher is facilitating a wisdom circle of individuals who are enjoying inquiry together. But rather than have me tell you about this degree, we have 3 experts in the virtual room here, and I'm going to take down my screen for a moment. And I want to come, Beth and Dave, to each of you in this conversation, and then Tim to you. And Beth and Dave, I know you've already talked a little bit about why you decided to pursue this degree, I think before I was able to enter the room, but I would love to hear a little bit more about your experiences. And maybe Beth, we can start with you, and then Dave will come to you, and then I have a few follow-up questions to that.
Sure. I just touched on it very briefly, but I mentioned that I have an MBA. And sorry, I have this kind of grovelly voice, but when I made the decision to get my to come and take to start with the MLA, I was looking at a lot of different programs. And I think one of the things that Dean Green called out on the slide was the curiosity and also the love of learning. I wanted, and I had the ability to go to some sessions at the University of Chicago, just some speakers. And I love the University of Chicago and always have for like 10 years before I even got it. I went to different things. And so it was tied to that. But it also, why I chose the MLA specifically, and it's similar to my MLA or my MBA. When I got my MBA, it was like a step change thinking approach. It changed how I thought. And it was from going to work at a company and understanding it and doing that. Where the MLA gave me the opportunity to learn in a different way and to think in a different way. And it goes back to your point that Seth made on critical thinking. And and that's what I liked about it. I also liked, and I think we'll get into this a little bit more in our conversation today, the format of the classes. I mean, the people that you are communicating with and, so shoulder to shoulder with your peers as students and also the faculty, it just pushes your brain beyond, things that you think, and taking that away and being able to apply that in the real, into, the corporate world and my job. But then it's really, I'm kind of and I'll talk about this later, but this reflective stage in my career where I want to do more. I want to make a difference in the world. And this is the kind of environment where you're getting a cross representation of material and thinking and patterns and all that kind of background to be able to do that. And a game changer. That's all I can say. Anyway, that was a long answer, but that's it.
That was a wonderful answer. And
I mean, get into it, but
you've just described one really compelling motivation for pursuing the MLA, right? Almost this transition in your career toward greater purpose and really the expansiveness that it provides. And Dave, I want to come to you because although you also have an MBA, it may be fair to say that you enrolled in this more so for personal enrichment and intellectual stimulation at a point of transition. And maybe you can talk about your journey and experience.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I probably first learned about the MLA program 25 or more than 25 years ago. And I remember immediately I was attracted to the idea of it. I was intrigued by this because it seemed like it offered me an opportunity to learn about things that were completely outside of my comfort zone, very, very different than what I've studied previously in accounting or finance. And so I said, I want to do this. I want to, expand my learning and pursue this. But at the time, I was busy with my career. My family and I were moving around quite a bit. When I was based in Chicago, I was traveling internationally all the time. And I said, okay, there's no way this will ever fit into my life. And so, or at least this part of my life. So I'm going to put this on the back burner. And maybe when I retire, this is something that would be fun to do. But as time went on and maybe, I don't know, my schedule slowed down or I got better control of my life and I got closer to that time when I was going to retire, I figured out, probably too late, that this would be a wonderful vehicle for helping me to transition from this professional chapter of my life to the next chapter, whatever that might be. And so when I was within a couple of years of thinking I would retire, I started the program, and it has been, just a wonderful experience. I think it's delivered everything that I thought it would. I've loved, every class, every paper I've written, every project I've done, and the students, the professors, everyone has really been wonderful and made it a great experience. But it's also it hasn't quenched my thirst for continued learning. And so it's helped me to establish kind of some objectives of what I'm going to do after this, which aren't completely fleshed out at this point, but I'm sure it definitely involves a Graham School. I'm sure I'm going to do some open enrollment stuff very quickly after, probably not over the summer. I might wait till the fall to do that, but pretty soon, because it just creates a thirst for knowledge that really can't be satisfied. And so I look forward to continuing this academic journey for the rest of my life.
Well, I have to say, this is what you Chicago students sound like. Someone who loves every paper they've written and has a thirst for knowledge, and someone who wanted to expand their horizons and renew purpose. Thank you both for those comments. And I have one more question, and then we'll come back to Tim. Maybe I'll start with you, Beth. You've, over your professional career, served in a lot of C-suite executive roles, and now you're in your consulting career and working on investor relations. Can you talk a little bit about how the MLA has helped you think about leadership and how the liberal arts may have complemented what you already knew about that from your business education?
Yeah, absolutely. I have the leadership and ethics concentration. So I took classes across from ancient leadership wisdom, but then you also take classes as part of the core across different fields and areas. And I think that one of the biggest things, from a leadership perspective, taking classes like digital ethics and really having deep conversation. And I took a class over at Booth, but it really, it expanded the way my view and my perspective. But then also, working with the other students that were in the room and learning from them as well, and just giving me a new perspective on how to think. One thing about having an MBA, you're very focused on, and David's, from an accounting, so you're on like, this is the operations thing I'm going to work on. I'm going to go write this earnings script. I'm going to go, dig into this depreciate, whatever. Anyway, you do it. You're very like, here's what you're going to do. Well, this program, and it comes back to having you think, like deep reading is an example. Like I took first class I took was some versions of the apocalypse, and it taught me how, right off the bat, how to think and same thing with my thesis, to write a 50-page paper, which sounds so hard, but back to what Dave said, I loved it. It was so, just in a nerdy kind of way, fun to just learn and know that I could do that and dig in and not just be, sometimes you get in business, you're like, okay, I got to get to the end of this in the fastest way possible. We're here. You're thinking in a much more deep way and full, and to enrichment side of it, it just makes you a more in-depth person and thinker.
And maybe I'll pick up on that last part, Beth, about the 50-page paper as an example, because Dave, we've talked a little bit in the past, and you've mentioned writing, was something that you really were excited to develop in this process. Can you talk a little bit about how your writing evolved over the course of your MLA journey?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I was excited, or at least very interested in the idea of developing my writing skills was because I had virtually none coming into the program. Given, I remember having a conversation with Tim before I even applied and talking about the writing sample that's required and what are you looking for there? And he just something you've written in the past, it can be something from work or whatever. And I went back and thought about, okay, the PowerPoint decks that I put together. One of my best emails ever. Do I want to submit that? None of that was was going to be. None of that would have gotten me into the program. That's for sure. And so I was looking for a different kind of experience, and so in fact, the first thing I think the writing sample that I did write was just something on a topic that was of interest to me, that I had ideas, and I put them down on paper, and it was probably the longest thing I'd written in my life, and all of 5 pages up until that point. But as I did that, and as I got into the program and started writing on different topics and working with different professors and getting their feedback and thoughts on how I can communicate things more effectively and so on and so forth, it helped me to gain confidence. And I'm definitely still a slow writer. I can't write, I can't write quickly, but I feel much more comfortable writing, and I really do take a lot of satisfaction out of taking what's in my head and putting it down on paper, and hopefully in a way that that effectively communicates what I'm trying to get across. And I think it's really important that the various resources our writing advisor, and as well as all the professors, have been just consistently outstanding in terms of just providing really, really helpful feedback, guidance, and support as I've developed this new skill, which is something that I've really enjoyed doing.
Well, so Tim, can we come to you? We've heard both Beth and Dave really describe extraordinary growth in the way they look at leadership, in their writing. Can you talk about how you've seen individuals grow across the MLA?
Sure. So I think my initial response to that question would be to speak to the confidence that students gain throughout the program. And that may seem like a strange or unexpected answer, especially because a few slides ago we saw that many of our students are coming into the program with noteworthy professional accomplishment or pre-existing graduate degrees. But for many of them, they've been away from formal schooling for a while, a number of years or decades in some case, and so that can be intimidating to have your re-entry into the classroom be at a place like the University of Chicago. And so it's always very rewarding from my perspective to see students who are maybe a little bit nervous about enrolling in their first class in poetry or literature, only to thrive and then be super eager and be the first to sign up for a neuroscience class 2 or 3 quarters down the road. But I also I have a more concrete example that comes to mind. There's a profile on our website of one of our alums named Omer Imtiaz. And I think his story is emblematic of how many students grow and sharpen important skills in the program. So Omer is now a director at Salesforce, and he talks about how his MLA education opened up new opportunities for him in his career because he so dramatically improved his critical thinking and communication skills. So in his current role at Salesforce, Omer often, he says he often finds himself playing something like a translator role between his clients and his team of analysts and consultants that are going to provide a service for clients. And Omer will credit his MLA interdisciplinary curriculum with helping him be comfortable in that dynamic and ensuring that his team of specialists provides the best service to his clients, even when, or especially when, the clients don't always articulate their needs in the same language that his team uses.
Well, thank you for those comments. I want to now bring everyone through the learning journey, and then I'm going to come back to you to hear about how that learning journey has been experienced by you, Beth and Dave, and then Tim, how you've seen other students engage with it. And so let's jump in. This is the overview of the actual curriculum that you go through. In the Master of Liberal Arts, you take one class in each of the 4 divisions of the university. So you get to see everything that this university has to offer. And importantly, you get to do so without being an expert deeply in each of these areas, because the way that it's constructed is for a generally intelligent audience. So you will be with world-class neuroscientists and physicists and cosmologists, but they know that they are teaching individuals who do not have years of quantitative study and a readiness to do graduate level physics in the traditional sense, even though they will expect you intellectually to be engaged at a graduate level. And so you will read scientific journal articles and you will engage deeply, but they will help to be a guide to those, and they will not require what are often the quantitative skills behind those. And so many of them are excited because instead of having to teach advanced math, they get to really focus on the content itself and the big intellectual questions raised in each of these fields. So that's part one, is you study across the university and you see the vastness of ideas here. Part two is that you take electives. And those electives, if you group them together, allow you to have a concentration. You can also take up to 2 classes in other parts of the university for your elective. So Beth mentioned Booth as an example of where she's taken those classes. To do so, though, you typically need to be in person. So we offer an array of electives online, but then you can go beyond should you have that opportunity to be here. The final capstone, as you heard Dave and Beth talk about 50-page papers, is your thesis. And that is a project by you that is based on an area you want to investigate further in partnership with an academic advisor that showcases knowledge you've gained over the course of the MLA, but goes well beyond it to areas of interest that you have uniquely. So I mentioned this earlier, if you take those electives, which are offered each quarter with a certain focus, then what you can do is you can concentrate in one of 3 areas. And that allows you to deepen your knowledge in that area, and potentially, if you see this as part of your career journey, to showcase that knowledge as part of that project. And those areas are ethics and leadership, where you're really looking at how you can reflect and grow as a leader through the study of the liberal arts. We are really struck by how powerful it can be to look across time and space and see that since human nature doesn't fundamentally change, a lot of what we learn from the ancients and classics all the way to today can continue to inform how we lead. In literary studies, you can go across the canon of literature here, and you can focus, and in Dave's example, you can also hone those writing skills. And then finally, in tech and society, this is a new concentration, and it's really engaged a lot of individuals who are in tech and tech adjacent fields. You can ask the big questions. We have a lot of answers now to how. We're obviously at a place of extraordinary technological advancement. And this is a complement to that for many people, because this asks the why questions. Fundamentally, is this new technology helping to advance society? Are there ways that this technology can be harnessed for even greater value to the world? And what are the big ethical questions being raised? And the class that was mentioned earlier, this digital ethics class, was taught by a philosophy professor who just happens to be familiar with some of these questions that are happening in contemporary society. He may study a lot of 18th century philosophy, but he had a conversation with the general counsel and EVP of Apple to talk about these issues, because a lot of the things that are happening in privacy today, they have big ethical questions related to them. And one of the ways to think about them is to use philosophy as a filter to think about the why side of those questions. So that gives you a little taste of the extraordinary concentrations that await in this degree program. And then this gives you a little taste of the type of theses that people finish with. One did a comparative analysis of the American and Chilean revolutions. This person happens to be Chilean. I will say that one of the excitement points for us was that he was sending us photos of him on TV on the election night, because he was across Chilean TV talking about analysis of the election, and he was actually referencing this capstone that he put together as part of that role that he played there, helping people to understand our election. Here's another example of someone who really wanted to look at the small Chicago area farmers. This is not on here, but I will mention that one of our recent students, who is a writer for the Sun-Times, put together a really extraordinary report on the Catholic Church. And I thought of him because of the recent American Pope, who hails no less from Chicago, the city that is, not the university. So you can really follow your interest while being guided along the way and being supported by this expansive study that comes before. I think you've already heard this from Dave and Beth, but I'll just say that we think a few things really make the UChicago classroom distinctive, that we have individuals that are not just Nobel-winning scholars, but also skilled facilitators in teaching and the Socratic method. We really pride ourselves on a place that has an exchange of ideas where all viewpoints, including controversial ones, are welcome, because we think that is how we are able to test ideas and build new ways of thinking about the world. And then in the MLA, we really value convenience so that working professionals and individuals who are not located here can participate in the life of the university. And I'll just say that one of the really special parts of the MLA is that you are taught by truly world-class faculty who come from all divisions of the university and who love teaching adults. And I'll come back to Dave and Beth on this, but they really are chomping at the bit for the chance to be in a room with 20 people that love learning, that have life experience, and that want to share that. And what I hear from faculty is that one of the distinctions of the MLA teaching experience is that they learn a lot, and they actually find that a lot of their experience with the adults in the MLA actually informs their other teaching, because they bring back a lot of practical and applied examples from their students to their other classrooms. We also have, for those who want to be in person, we really encourage this at least once, but maybe more, a residential seminar week. You saw earlier the pictures of our campus. We have the largest botanic garden university in the country. It is a gorgeous campus, especially right now in May. We typically hold these in September and May, even though I'm sure people would love to come in person in January. And so you get a chance to be part of the universe, and you really get embedded for a week. It's efficient because you do complete a full class, but it's also really meaningful. And I think it enriches the rest of your online experience. So I encourage people to really think about taking the residential seminar, being here embedded in campus for a week, and doing it early in your time, because I think it makes everything you do afterward even greater. And with that, I'll just say there are a lot of supports. So we do want you to know that even if you haven't been in the classroom for decades, there are a lot of people here ready to make sure you succeed. An academic advisor, a person who is really extraordinary at writing and advising on it, and who wows our students. And I'll come back to Dave and Beth on this front, but they make a 50-page paper so much more fun because they're a real partner with you. We obviously have a lot of events. We have an incredible network. And so all of those things wrap around this degree. But again, let me not be the one to tell you about all this. We have experts here in the room with me. And Dave, I'll start with you this time. And you are about to graduate. So as you come to this moment, can you just talk about your MLA journey and maybe speak a little bit to what it's been like to be back in the classroom after what might have been a couple decades in between your graduate degree #1 MBA and then, when you came back for this?
Yeah, a couple decades. That's generous, but thank you for that. Yeah, I said earlier, it exceeded all my expectations. I mean, I had high expectations for the program, and it's been just amazing. And it's one of the reasons why I've drawn it out as long as I could. I started over 5 years ago, and I'm just finishing now. And one of the reasons is that I was having so much fun doing it that I took a lot longer to do things so I could enjoy it that much more. You talk about the faculty. The professors have been consistently just really, really incredibly strong. I think they are at the tops of their fields, well respected, great reputations, but yet very approachable. And in the classroom, they're so accessible. And to your point, Seth, you mentioned they enjoy teaching these classes because I think it's fun for them, and that enthusiasm shows through. But the secret sauce is really the students, the classmates that I had in these classes. Everybody comes in with the right attitude. They're all here to learn. It is, it's a wonderful environment to learn in. But I think what's really makes it so incredibly valuable is the diversity of the student population. And you touched on that a bit with the international representation, but even just looking at, I had classes where the youngest student was in their mid-20s and the oldest student was in their mid-80s and had completely different life experiences. And we're talking about really important issues that are going on in our world. And you get very, very different perspectives, and everybody's listening to everybody else and absorbing that. And you can feel kind of everybody's view of the world kind of expanding as this information is shared. And so I think the professors do a great job of ensuring that everybody has a voice, that all, it's not a safe space in that sense, but it is. I mean, I think people feel entirely comfortable sharing whatever their opinions are, and it's done in a way that even if people disagree, it's always a civil discussion, and we all end up learning something from the process. So, it's been just a tremendous learning experience, and something, unlike anything I'd ever really had in my life prior to this. So.
Well, that is a beautiful description. And Beth, anything to add to your experience that complements what Dave's mentioned about the journey, the classroom, the teachers, the peers?
Absolutely. I just echo everything that Dave said. And it's the level of engagement. People show up engaged and ready. They've done the readings. They're, excited to be part of it. And you grow over the class. I remember, back to your point of coming back, I'd been out of school for quite some time. And I was nervous about it, oh my gosh, these people are going to be so smart. They're at the University of Chicago. Am I going to speak up? What are you going to do? And usually not a problem to speak up, but it's one of those things where you want to, am I going to be, is this going to be, good thing to say? And the professors, like in my first class, which was, I think, mentioned some versions of the apocalypse with Professor Miller, he, made you feel comfortable, pushed you, and made you think, you do deep reading of these different areas. And just same thing with my climate class with Professor Archer, is that he made the comment, it's like a group of friends sitting around and talking, but it's beyond that, because it really, I learned in that class, I had to take, you mentioned about having to take scientific articles and synthesize them for the class. And you're just like, oh my goodness. But you build on it throughout the class, and throughout the program as well. And back to the thesis, I took a residential seminar, highly recommend that. The digital ethics with the one you mentioned. And I took my paper out of that class and really expanded and created a 10-week class on artificial intelligence, and used fictional works about what it means to be human. And it was just something I was interested in. And that was a nice thing. And it was a special project. So I just can't say enough about how, the support of your students in the class, and also the professors and the program. I mean, the Graham School team is there to make it so you can be successful, and just focus on the learning and different areas. So I just can't say enough of how it helped me kind of move to another place in my life. I think back on, as I mentioned, about being in transition and being like thinking back at this period of time. And I did it in 2 years. I did it pretty quickly. And same way with Dave, I missed it. I miss it now because I still want to learn and do something different. But, I go back and I go to speakers, and I'm part of the University of Chicago community, which is so vibrant. And it's just it's a wonderful place to be, either on campus or, reading the materials that you provide.
Well, Tim, I want to come to you quickly before we turn it over to Carrie to just talk about timeline and logistics. Anything to add on what makes the classroom at UChicago distinctive?
Well, I'm sure this is echoing what was mentioned previously here, but the distinctive aspect of the classroom is the Socratic seminar. Very little lectures going on, so students aren't the receivers, but the co-creators of knowledge and understanding. And that can only happen when classes meet live, so our classes are synchronous. We deliberately keep class sizes small. They're capped at 20 enrollments, but more commonly 12 to 13 would be the size. one of our alums in a recent meeting described it like having box seats, having sort of a front row seat for the show. And in this environment, the peers learn from one another. Spirit of joint inquiry is a phrase that I'm fond of, that I think sums up the situation very nicely. There's disagreement and there's occasional debate in the classroom, but it's done collegially and productively, all with an eye toward getting the group towards closer to the understanding of whatever the issue or text is at hand. And frankly, faculty are just as eager to be in that room and part of those conversations as the students are. So it's a real special place.
Well, I want to come back to you during Q&A, but let me turn it over now to Carrie Dempsey. I'm going to share my screen again, and she leads our marketing and recruitment, and I'll let her talk through the next steps for those of you who may want to apply. And then we're going to come to your questions. So you can start populating them in the chat or just get ready to raise your hand or unmute. Carrie?
Great, thanks, Seth. So in terms of next steps, we do have quite a few months now until our next application deadline for autumn, which is September 3rd. And I know it looks like quite a bit of time, but there are quite a few steps in the process. So it's always good to start as soon as possible. So the first is the writing sample that I believe Dave spoke to just a couple minutes ago. And that is going to be a piece of work that you have completed that's at least 5 pages long. And we do try to not have you reinvent the wheel and create something new. So a lot of times people do submit something that they've already done in the workplace. We are willing to look at this ahead of you submitting your application. So you can always email that over to us at mla-admissions@uchicago.edu, and we will review it and provide you feedback, either yes, this will work, or you know what, we'd like you to either look at something else or write something new. If it is, the decision is to write something new, people do write maybe reviews of a movie they saw or a play. We are very open-minded in terms of the content and can workshop that with you. Anytime that you save repurposing something for a writing sample, we strongly encourage you take that time and really focus in on the candidate statement. This is such an important piece of your application, and it really helps us understand your motivations and why you want to pursue the MLA. So please take the time to do that. We typically look for about 4 pages for that piece, but that's a very important component of your application. You will need to submit 2 letters of recommendation. For transcripts, we do need transcripts for any university you have attended. For the application itself, you can submit unofficial transcripts. If you are admitted and do start as a student, we'll then work with you to gather the official transcripts from those schools. You also need to submit a resume. If you're non-native English speaking, you also need to submit your TOEFL test scores. There is a $75 application fee. And once you submit your application, we will reach out to you to coordinate a time for an interview. This isn't an interview of your knowledge of the liberal arts. This is more a conversation just around answering any questions that may have arisen during our review of your application, and just to get to know you better and to further our understanding of your motivations for pursuing this degree. If you are admitted to the MLA, in terms of tuition, looking forward to our next academic year, tuition will be about $4,300 a course. But we do see students fund this through a variety of different ways. So one is we heavily encourage you, if you are working, to talk to your employer. We have many students who leverage their employer's tuition reimbursement benefits to help fund their education. And as you've heard through tonight's conversation, there's a number of different ways that you will grow as a leader, as a thinker, as a writer, as a communicator that will benefit your organization. We do also have some merit scholarships available. If you are interested in being considered for a merit scholarship, we heavily encourage that you submit your application as soon as possible, because we do review these merit scholarships on a rolling basis. And in terms of financial aid, if you are taking 2 or 3 courses during any given quarter, you can apply for federal financial aid. However, if you're only taking 1 course a quarter, federal financial aid is not an option, but you can still look at private loans.
And with that, we are ready for your questions. And so let me take down the screen here. And let me encourage you to chat them in. Use the React tab at the bottom to raise your hand, or we're an intimate group. you can just unmute and shout out, so to speak, which is the common method used during class. So it will get you ready for the future. And I see one question already from Aileen, which is about the timeline. And so as you see in Callie's response, it is 9 courses. And so it is possible if you were to take a full load of 3 classes per quarter. We do have students that have a broad range of approaches to the timeline, and flexibility is built in. So I'm going to ask Beth and Dave to maybe talk briefly about how they approach the timeline. But I would just say, in short, it ranges from the really ambitious, who might even be pursuing this almost in a full-time capacity, taking it in a year, all the way over to people that really have a savoring approach where, you know, they might take 1 course each autumn and 1 course each spring and reread the readings and really dwell. And that can be up to 5 years for some. And so Beth and Dave, do you want to just each share your experience in terms of the time and approach that you took to your degrees?
Sure. I started in September of 2022 and finished in June of 24. And what that meant is I took some quarters, it's a quarter system. I took 2 classes. I think I guess most of the time I did, but sometimes just 1. So it kind of a range, but it was, yeah, I think I couldn't imagine taking 3 would be, I think, a lot, but I guess if you were doing it full time, but I also did some other work, but I had a little bit more, I was also at a period where I had a little bit more time. And like I mentioned, I took 1 class on campus, and then the residential summer was a week long. So kind of a mixture of, from kind of 2 classes to 1 class to residential seminar. So kind of a hybrid approach.
And Dave, do you want to share your timeline?
Yeah, I would have said I took a less ambitious approach, but I think the word was savoring that you used, Seth. I savored every class, and so I actually came into the program with the expectation of doing just 2 per year, and along the lines of what you mentioned. COVID kind of made it. I had less to do. I had less free. I mean, I had more free time or less travel, and it was easier to get them done. And so I took them a little faster than I thought, but never took more than 1 at a time. And I, you know, and it was very easy to fit into my schedule that way. And so it was fine for me. And then I dragged out my thesis for almost 2 years.
Well, so Shannon asked, what time of day are the classes? Is it realistic for a person to complete the program while working full time? And I mean, Dave, when you started, you were working full time. I know you've retired during the degree, and Beth, you also have been ambitiously working, even though you've had moments where you've been able to dig in more. I mean, I'll just say in response, classes are in the evening US time. And it is entirely realistic. We built it with full-time working professionals in mind. So we aim to be with people that are, you know, with the experience levels that you see, still in the core of their career and wanting to do this alongside it. So we do not have a good system, to Aileen's question, for people that do work at night. The only thing I'll offer is that the classes are typically offered 4 different weeknights and then 1 Saturday morning, Tim, if I'm getting that correctly. So you will have options, but if you were to work every night, the challenge is that then you would not have as many choices each quarter. You could do it, but you know, there is 1 Saturday morning course. So I do think that's worth considering. If though you're only working a couple nights a week, then, you know, in that example, let's say 2 nights, Monday and Thursday, you would have 3 options every quarter. That I think gets into a level where if you're choosing one, you're still with a good amount of optionality to really follow your own path and build your own degree.
Seth, I might just add to that.
Yeah.
I found the professors to be extremely flexible and accommodating of individuals' time constraints, and so there were multiple times where, you know, I couldn't turn in a term paper quite, you know, and the final week, and the professor said, just send it in a month is fine, as long as you don't need your grade, you know, by the end of the quarter. They were very reasonable in terms of trying to make accommodations.
And I should echo on that there's also really an understanding that working professionals do occasionally have presentations or other commitments that come up in the evening. We do encourage students not to miss more than 3 classes in a quarter. Talk to your faculty member. So we obviously want you to be there and be active, but we understand life happens, and this is specifically for working professionals. So the faculty want to see that you learned and that you've done reading and that you might watch the video, but there is a level of accommodation for the fact that you are part-time students and that you have other commitments in your life.
And the classes go so fast. They're from 6:30 to 9:30 and they just fly by. And the reading is also doable in terms of, you know, the work behind the scenes too.
I know we're coming to time. Are there any other questions in the room before I let you go? All right, well, seeing none, can I just say a huge thank you to those who joined us? This is a very special degree. We are very grateful to have it in our walls. And Dave and Beth, thank you for being role models in the program and sharing your stories tonight. And Tim, thank you for leading this spectacular program forward. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good night.
you. Bye.
Bye.